And we're live. I'm here with James. James, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great, Caleb. Thanks for having me on. About time.
Yeah, about time. Well, you've been on with Jose. I've been on with Jose. You've been on with Jacob. I've been on with Jacob. You've been on with Adam. I've been on with Adam. I kept waiting for one of these guys to say let's do a double episode with both these guys, and then it never happened. And so I figured, fuck it, I'll do it myself.
There we go. Well, thanks. So you were stuck in traffic coming home from the gym. Is that right?
Yes. Cool. I did not anticipate, like, I figured I get out after 5 o'clock traffic, but then 5 o'clock traffic was going to like 7. And so it just kept going.
The gym thing is on my mind right now. I'm doing my first powerlifting competition this weekend, and I'm very excited. I've never thought of myself as a powerlifter. I was like, in high school, I was an offensive lineman on the football team, and I was the only lineman who could not bench 200 pounds. And like that, and I was over 200 pounds. Like, it was, the inability to bench my own weight really was the big thing. Cause that was like what you were supposed to be able to do as like the benchmark or whatever, no pun intended. And so, now like I still can't bench my weight, but that's just because I'm fucking fat and heavy, but, I'm well over 200 pounds, which is cool. Benching well over 200 pounds. I mean, nice. So I'm curious, like what your gym routine is like, before we actually get into the interview.
Oh, good. It was for like it was a window when I was doing like solid. I was benching. I was doing I lost like 40 pounds. I was doing squats, bench, all of it. And then COVID had my gym shut down, and I just now finally kind of get back into the flow of everything because it just kind of knocked on my ass, and I didn't go for a while. But now I'm just doing the simple workouts. I go in, hour of cardio, two tests. Normally it's like a incline, and a regular press, and then 2 triceps, and then I do the sauna. I do the same with every muscle group. I just do 2 muscle groups a day. Normally by and back, legs and shoulders, chest and try, and then do that 3 days, rest 1 day, go back to the 3 days.
Nice.
Just keep it very simple. I don't have a whole lot of time and energy. Like going to the gym after working out in the Florida sun all day, it's just exhausting.
Damn, I don't think I even knew you were from Florida.
Oh yeah.
I guess that explains the NASA hat. Statist.
Yes. No. Well, I have to wear this. I have the hat and how the book is organized is all attempt to gatekeep. Like if you notice, I have the Trump Kaczynski hat right next to my Trump book and the Kaczynski book. The goal is that hopefully people will see that and then not ever want to watch the show. Same with the Yaki book up there. I got a gatekeepers the background,
Yeah. You got to keep your audience curated. Otherwise, just anybody will join the chat and shit. And you don't want that to happen.
Exactly. We got John over here.
John James. John, my favorite stalker. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I love John to death. John is one of the very few people who I have like a kind of ongoing one-on-one conversation, and like we're in group chats and stuff together. Mm-hmm. You hear all about these libertarian group chats, and I'm in none of them, except for one that John. Well, there was one that John put together that has since kind of gone defunct because we're in other ones that are a little bit more lively. But yeah, he's a good person to bounce ideas. Has he been on your show?
Yeah, I had him and Tommy and a friend of mine, Caleb, on for a Jung episode.
Oh,
well, actually, I'm having those same guys on again. We're doing a Jung series. We're gonna have those same guys on to cover more Jung books.
Nice. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just watch that instead of actually reading Jung, which
he's hard to read.
Yeah, I know.
It's
actually. Yes, Uninsufferable Friends. John, he just told us the name of his group. It was Uninsufferable Friends, and we became too insufferable, which was why he just dissolved it. Jung. So, no, I'm thinking of Nietzsche. There was a course at Thad Russell's, now maybe defunct. I don't even know if Renegade University is still a thing.
I really like the idea of Renegade University. It seemed like a good idea.
I'm gonna try to revive it. Nice. Oh, it's still there. The site's still awesome. Up. It looks like you can still pay for stuff. They'll still take your money, but Thad's not involved, and I'm not involved, so I don't really know kind of what the behind the scenes stuff is there. I am working with Jason Stapleton and soon to be Tom Woods on a site called Liberty Creators, which so it's inspired by Matt Erickson, who when he was on my show with LB Muniz, just kind of off the cuff said, he goes, liberty is not something you ask for, it's something you create. He was, of course, speaking kind of against politics and voting and that sort of thing. And that falls right in line with Michael Malice's thing. You can't vote yourself free, and you can't spend yourself rich. And that really, so liberty is not something you ask for, it's something you create, really, really hit home for me. I want to create my own liberty, but I also want to help other people create their own liberty. And if I can, in helping other people create their liberty, create some of my own, and by liberty I mean money, then I'd love to be able to do that.
That's really the only definition of liberty I accept nowadays.
Yeah,
money.
I know.
Anyone's definition, I just ignore. It's just a definition.
Well, I think Jason Stapleton had the right idea with wealth, power, and influence. I have kind of, rejoined and become much more active in Libertarian Party stuff. But I don't see it necessarily as a mechanism for achieving liberty so much as, interfacing with and finding people who would like to achieve liberty. Yeah, if that makes sense.
That's really the only part of Mises Caucus strategy that I like, is that it is a community of people who agree on things.
Yeah.
That's like I think that's the only good parts out of Mises Caucus strategy. I found that, and making Nick Sarwark freak out about being assaulted.
Dude,
like that alone was just like that. Like if I knew that was gonna happen, I would have gave them money, even though I don't agree with them. I would have given them money for that.
That easily could have been me too. I walked up to Nick the day before that happened, and I shook his hand. I said, "Hey, I wanted to," because he had been kind of interjecting throughout all of our kind of coup attempt stuff. Hey, you really don't want to do this. It's going to be less efficient in the long run. I've been there. And as much as we hate to say it, you kind of do need those people with the institutional knowledge. As much as we might hate institutionalism, the bureaucrats who have been there, done that, kind of know their shit. And so Nick was giving us some pretty good advice. So I walked up and I said, hey, we don't see eye to eye ideologically or from a strategic standpoint, but I do appreciate that you were imparting some of your wisdom on us yesterday. And so the crux of it though was I said I'm hoping that we can find some common ground and work together sometime in the future. And he said, well, I don't think that's going to happen, and here's why. And then he proceeded to shit on Dave Smith, and in particular their Soho Forum debate, which I hadn't thought about in years, but apparently is still just top of mind for him. It got a little bit heated, and he started to walk away while I was in the middle of a sentence. So I started to kind of match pace with him, and he threatened to call security on me. So wow. I'm glad that he didn't shoulder bump me, because I don't want to talk to the cops.
Yeah. What is libertarian who hates the police but calls the cops the moment anyone touches him? That's that's like peak autism right there. It's
absolutely crazy. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it borders on. What was your you had like a triune thing. There was autism was in the middle of it, and God, it was just yesterday.
Oh, it was the three tiers of libertarian Twitter. It was Zine libertarians, autistic libertarians, and schizo libertarians.
Right. So that borders, I think, on schizo, even if he is still regime.
Yeah. Like he's crossing over, but he's crossing boundaries. we need him to go on not a podcast. Like that's the go. Get him schizo to go on not a podcast.
I'm ashamed to say I've still never listened to a single episode of Not a Podcast. And I've only watched like half an episode, if even that, of Slurp Gang.
I love Slurp Gang is my favorite podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot of people's, and I feel like if I would give it the time to learn all the inside jokes and the personalities and stuff, I'd probably like it better.
It's really not a whole lot of inside jokes. It's just yeah. Like the only real inside jokes is Low Tax's mom is dead. Which I don't know how that make. This is a joke to shit on one guy because he brought up like Low Tax's mom died, and everyone was like, who the fuck is Low Tax? And he just killed the entire momentum of the episode. They ended it, and so that's like the only inside joke that is good. Yeah, so actually, Jay, the guy who runs it, and Eddie left the show today, which is kind of sad.
Oh.
So I don't know if stuff is like going to continue. What's going to happen with it? It might be over. Might be dead. Which really suck because it's a great show.
I hope it's not over.
Yeah.
Is Nick Ashley still doing stuff with them, or
he deleted his account, so on Twitter. So I don't know.
oh, did he really?
Yeah,
keeps doing that.
I
I
don't
can't keep
blame
up
him.
with that dude, man.
Yeah,
I should just, I've got his phone number. I should really just text him. Like we haven't talked in forever. I miss him. He's such a good dude.
good guy. I love that guy. One of my favorite people on Twitter. At least one of my favorite people on Twitter, I guess.
Man. Yeah, I think I compared him to Michael Malice once. That was probably a bit of an overstatement, but whatever.
Yeah, Nick's way better.
What was I going to say? Oh, shit. Oh, right. Timeline Earth. That's another one. I used to listen to them pretty regularly, but then like none of them would respond to my messages. So I kind of stopped listening, which is probably a dumb reason to stop listening to a podcast you enjoy. But
I just started listening to them probably a week ago because I really enjoyed Bird stuff. Where so hey look, Nick
hey,
Astley,
what the hell? Nick's here.
Nick, we're just talking about.
Oh my god, where have you been? Hit N in the chat, I guess. Is that what we do still? I don't even know.
I made a test video just to hop into StreamYard to test a few things. So I labeled it test. It was never going to post and publish it, or even like go live. And people were already posting the ends in like just the waiting lobby.
Damn, Nick, were you not here when we were talking about you like 2 seconds ago? Wow, cool. Well, it's good to see you, Nick. I'm glad you're here. We should catch up soon. But now back to us.
Yeah.
So what have you been thinking about lately? What's been on your mind?
Questioning. I mean, big news today for myself is I went on Twitter and posted I'm no longer a libertarian, and so that kind of was, I guess that's the forefront of what I've been talking about. But yeah, I've had some. I want to talk about like ideological things. I think you've gone from agorist to Mises Caucus to now you're doing your own thing, kind of all over the place on like strategy and that kind of stuff.
So I've had a very long sort of ideological journey that it started like a long time ago. I mean, I came from the left to super hyper traditionalist Catholicism. I was a sedevacantist for a while. So like really hyper traditionalist. And in 2020, I sort of hitched my wagon to Pete Quinones, who started identifying as an agorist. I don't know if I stopped identifying as that or he did first, but it became very clear very quickly that it was kind of unworkable. I like the ideology. I think it's cool. I think it's maybe the purest form of libertarianism, but it's also very pie in the sky, and like there's no way that Konkin is right that black and gray markets are going to take down the state. Like that's not the like real world conclusion of agorism. You might have a lot more people creating their own freedom, which I think is great. But the kind of freedom that you kind of have to create as an agorist, either is like a homestead, which I mean, look at me, I'm not a homesteader, or like a nomad. Like Sal the Agorist is not a homesteader, but he's a total nomad. He answers to nobody. He does what the fuck he wants. He travels all over the place, and
he blocked me on Twitter last week. Sadly,
was that because you liked a tweet?
I was on the side of the sober caucus.
Yeah.
And he's been on my show. I really enjoy talking to him. Like he's a really fun guy to talk to. His Twitter. Like, I don't know. It's like there's the people on Twitter like what's her name? Mac McKinsey, from the Hoppy and stuff. Like on Twitter, we never vibe on Twitter, but on podcast, I always have a great time talking to her.
Sure.
It's like there's several people who it's like on Twitter, and I ignore them on Twitter normally because I know actually just don't vibe. But like face to face or on a podcast, it's like we're just vibing, having a great time. So it's
weird. I don't know if I have anybody like that on Twitter, but I also don't interact with people. Like I try not to interact with people negatively on Twitter. I think I went through my like online debating phase in the Tom Woods group on Facebook. So like it was very insular, and I kind of got that all out of my system. It was also, I mean, part of it was just my my partner, shamed me so much for all of the arguing I did online that I finally realized, hey, wait a second, this isn't just him making fun of me. This is him pointing out that like it's a complete waste of time what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I try to keep my Twitter stuff, as positive as I can, and if I'm debating or being argumentative, it's usually to build on what someone else said rather than to contradict what they said. So, and I didn't intentionally start doing that, but I do that a lot. It's a lot of yes ands rather than, no buts. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. I don't really do debates on Twitter either. This is Ace. I enjoy interacting with Ace on Twitter only because I think it's a great sounding board for hearing the purest form of what an anarchist principle would lead to. And he's helped me work out why I'm not an anarchist. So thank you, Ace, made me not an anarchist.
Are you the one who put up the poll? Who's the most consistent motherfucker Ace or Dave Smith?
Yes.
Okay. I saw that earlier today. I was like, I'm not even responding to this.
I think Ace. I think Ace is more consistent than Dave.
Yeah,
but I mean,
in fact, I'm just going to vote right now. Oh, of course, Dave Smith is winning.
Yeah, and it's not a fair poll, obviously.
I'll retweet and see if you can get the right answer.
Anyone who knows Ace and knows Dave knows the answer is Ace. I mean,
yeah, obviously. But there is something to be said for pragmatism. I don't think that it's useful to sit around and argue about philosophy. Like it can be fun, I guess, and there is utility in fun. But I have to keep in mind that it is a leisurely activity and not something that is, actually efficacious in any real way. Yeah. I saw a tweet today. Let's see. So it was a response to Biden's chief economic advisor not being an economist, but having previously worked in ESG and, the oil production having been, unilaterally cut off by the executive branch of the government, leading directly to these insane prices of gas. Someone tweeted as a response to this, little tweet thread, I really do think some people had the mentality of if we just demonize present technology enough, a green solution will be forced to emerge. And I said, if you replace present technology with the state and green with libertarian, you've got the fatal flaw of political libertarianism. So basically, I really do think some people had the mentality of if we just demonize the state enough, a libertarian solution will be forced to emerge. And to me, that's absolutely not true. If you demonize the state enough, you just end up looking like a conspiracy theorist and eventually get thrown into jail. Because whether you demonize the state or not, the state's going to get stronger and it's going to continue victimizing you unless you either have some sort of bulwark against it or the state eventually collapses. I don't think that the libertarian solution is really found in electing libertarian politicians. Again, I think it's in individuals finding their own freedom, creating their own freedom. And
that's the part of agorism I like. I think agorism is great for like the counter economic side of agorism. I think is effective. I think the whole ideology it has to it doesn't. It was in a way personal, but it won't ever escape maybe in the family of your family or your close knit community. And whenever scale upward high enough. Yeah, I don't think you're ever gonna get enough people to all sign on to agorism. Just because some people just aren't going to be able to cut it. And well, so I just don't think it functions.
And I think that's why Jason Stapleton's message, or his former message, he doesn't really his show's no longer Wealth, Power, and Influence, and he talks a little bit about those topics, but also he's been delving more into current events. He's kind of balancing them, which I kind of like. I'm a huge fan of Jason Stapleton's, but the old the Wealth, Power, and Influence model is to me sort of a more realistic, I guess, and practicable form of agorism. And in fact, Jose has called it like modern day agorism, which it's not very Kunkinian, but if you want to call it that and you're an agorist influencer, by all means go for it. Because to me, I think agorism proper doesn't have legs. So Jason, like I said, I'm working with him, and I don't necessarily agree with the idea of buying a lobbyist or buying a congressman so that you can really get your political way. But I do, like I said, think that creating your liberty is the best way to achieve your liberty, rather than trying to elect somebody to the position.
I'm a fan of the most power influence idea, mainly because I think the elites run everything, and unless you have your own set of counter elites or a parallel elites that are going to be able to cover, protect, or be a counter to the current elites, you're not going to ever have any success.
Yeah,
totally. And
totally.
this is the problem. Like, this is actually it's the problem when everyone was going after Jason Stapleton for the most power influence idea. I kept pointing out like how the fact that like Mises and Rothbard wouldn't have jobs if it wasn't for the elites who paid for them to write things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that we as Mises Caucus people, because I'm a Mises like my name tag with all of my Mises Caucus buttons and ribbons and lanyard and everything is like right there. I can see it, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. I love the Mises Caucus. I'm a member. I'm not an organizer anymore, but I was. And I have no qualms about that. But I think that one of the biggest flaws of the Mises people is that we tend to become, I'm hesitant to say cultish, but like we're so insular and such a like tight knit community, I guess, that any sort of detraction, whether it be Jason Stapleton saying, oh, you need to build your own liberty, or Mark Claire saying, hey, you guys are probably wasting your time, get the fuck out of the city and shore up your defenses.
Don't spend money going to Reno when you can't pay rent.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever the counter message is, or Vin Armani saying, Dave Smith's a predator.
I can't fucking Vin. I can't take Vin. He's agreed to come on my podcast if I buy his book, and he only can buy it in Bitcoin. Which I respect the hustle. I respect that hustle. I completely respect it. I can't. He's
does he literally want you to buy his book, or does he want you to read his book that you have somehow otherwise acquired? Because I can send you the PDF. It's a fantastic book.
I think he wants even if you don't.
Well, I'll send you the book because it's really good. He describes and defines the Trinity better than any theologian you will ever read. It is a phenomenal book. It's a phenomenal theology book, and it's a phenomenal cryptocurrency book. I don't know how he did it, but it's really, 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 really good. So I highly recommend it to anybody. Vin's past, present, and far past notwithstanding. Yeah. So anyway, the Mises Caucus has a tendency to really, really react to any sort of detraction, and especially we react to apostasy, which, being Catholic, how religions react to apostasy. So in order to not become like the faith of the Mises Caucus, I really, really try to temper that, not only in myself. That's not an instinct I have, really. Like I'm not I don't know. I don't know what it is about my personality that makes me not react like that. Like I don't feel like loyalty is owed to anybody. I think that, you're loyal insofar as your loyalty benefits you, which might make me a bit of a Sternerite. I don't really know. But the idea that like Mark Claire is now an apostate doesn't really come to my mind. But it does come to the mind of a lot of people in the caucus. And I don't think that that's helpful to anybody. It's not, It might be helpful to Mark in curating his audience. Like you were saying earlier, like, that's why I have my Kaczynski book up there. But it's not helpful to anybody in the caucus. I mean, what if he has something valuable to say? I think he does. But even if you don't think he does, isn't it worth listening to this guy who like has been wise about everything else for these last, I don't know what, 8 years? So yeah, just dismissing someone whole cloth because they've rejected your way of thinking it's not really a good way to do business.
No, it's a weird it's not just the Mises Caucus, so it's like overall libertarians. Like on my tweet today about no longer being a libertarian, the official Libertarian Party of Connecticut, they commented and tried to argue with me about it. And I'm like, I have a podcast under 400 subscribers. You're an official state party. What are you doing? What are you doing? You are a state party, and you're spending your time on Twitter calling my statement bullshit. What is this? I couldn't get my. They follow me. I don't even follow them. I couldn't wrap my
How
head
very
around it.
weird. Well, I mean, they probably follow. I mean, they follow me too. I don't know if I follow them or not, but it's, I'm sure they follow like any libertarian or libertarian-ish podcaster.
Yes.
So why are you coming out as not a libertarian anymore?
I think libertarian. There's a few different reasons. Mainly, the main reason is I don't ideologically fit inside the libertarian ideological bubble neatly into it, and so I didn't want to be either a saying something, having people commenting, well, actually, according to libertarian principle Rothbard wrote about in the 80s, I don't want to deal with that. As I understand, I'm not a libertarian, and I didn't want to make other libertarians look bad. But if I have a shit take on something, I don't want that to reflect any other libertarian. And so I've decided I'm just going to distance myself because I don't. Also, I'm at this point, I'm just non-ideological. I don't want any strict ideology that I can just. I think ideological thinking is bad. I think it's detriment to overall thinking and overall like figuring out the world and making political action. And so I've just kind of moved into this non-ideological Burnhamite style of politics.
Cool.
So I don't want to
be
tied into
sorry.
anything.
What style of politics?
Burnhamite, like the things.
Oh, okay, James Burnham. Okay, so like, would you classify yourself as like a Machiavellian? Like, are you in the Pete camp, or like is that a little too far? Where are you at?
I mean, I'm pretty. If I had to pick someone that I align with most, probably Pete. He's got me reading Yaki, and so I'm doing a lot of basically at this point, anytime Pete says a book, I buy that book and read it. That's my. Right. I finish the book and text Pete, hey, I finished the book. What should I do next? Like, so I kind of just go where he says to go, but I'm not fully 100% on board with everything he says. Yeah. I will say he did have Dr. E. Michael Jones on recently, and I love Dr. E. Michael Jones. I
who's that?
A few different times. He's a Catholic doctor. Who, I don't know where the doctor was in exactly, but he runs a magazine called Culture Wars, and he's been canceled a lot for saying some well, it's kind of how to put this. He wrote a paper or an article or something about how Jews won pornography. And everyone kind of went after him for it. But a Jewish person took the same article and posted it and basically said, yeah, but it's good. And everyone said, yeah, you're right, it is good. And so it's like they told him it was a lie because he was just lying about Jews wanting pornography. But when a Jewish person said it was true and good, it was like everyone agreed with this guy. And so it's just he's been canceled. You can't find any of his books on Amazon. You can't find him anywhere. He's a huge anti-porn advocate, and he has his argument that porn is pushed by people in power to control populations.
What is the benefit in pointing out that Jews run pornography?
I don't know exactly. I was for me. How do I put this? He has a whole book on the Jewish revolutionary spirit. I'm not into any. I don't care about race. I care about the ideology of people who are doing things. So I must be more interested in the idea, the Jewish whatever. What's the ideology of the people who run porn? That's more interesting to me than the fact that to have the Jewish or a yarmulke.
That's a little bit my issue. Like, I could definitely, and I don't know if Pete listens to your show or not. And I haven't said this to Pete. I haven't said this to Pete's face. I probably would if we were talking. I haven't talked to Pete in a while, unfortunately. But I mean, I could definitely see this trend that I'm seeing in Pete leading eventually to him becoming like the next Chris Cantwell. And I don't want to see Pete crying on the news because he got arrested for rioting at a protest for some sort of white nationalist cause or whatever. That's my one concern with the direction that I see Pete going. That said, I haven't listened to his show in a little while, so it might not be that he's actually going that direction. It might just be that like the few clips that I've caught have happened to mention Jews or Jews, which is even worse.
Yeah, well, that is a weird thing with like revisiting his history. Is that anytime you cover like revisiting history of like anything involving World War I, World War II, anything after that, it is a major Jewish element that is not like talked about in mainstream history. And so it's very easy to kind of read that and go, oh, this guy's just talking about a Jewish conspiracy theory. No, he's just talking history, and Jews have played a major role in a lot of historical events.
Yeah, so Thad's about to come out with a book that is going to be very controversial because he questions the Holocaust orthodoxy. I don't know how it's going to be received, being that it's Thad Russell and not Chris Cantwell writing this book. I'm very interested to see what happens. because even like when he was on my show most recently, he laid out his case very briefly, and people I've never heard of, people who don't follow either me or Thad, somehow got their hands on that podcast episode and blew up my Twitter. So I'm interested to see what his actual case in writing in a scholarly, well, I guess it's going to be a popular history book, but it will be, well researched and footnoted.
I love this last book, Winning a History of the United States.
Yeah,
I'm
it's about fucking time he came out with another one too.
Yes, like people like to hate on Sad. I love Sad. I love listening to him. I don't always agree. I don't agree with everything because I'm not a postmodernist. I'm a Thomist.
Sure.
But I think I've tried to get him on before because I want to do I do an Explain to Me Like I'm Five series. So I have any topic that a guest comes on, Explain to Me Like I'm Five.
Oh, cool.
And I want to get him on for Explain to Me Like I'm Five postmodernism, where he just goes through the basics of postmodern thought and kind of explains it like a basic level of it. But he will not respond to any of my tweets.
If you can get Bird from Timeline Earth to do that, he's better at explaining it than he's better at explaining it than
he's not responding to my tweets either. He follows me, but he won't respond to my ask.
Yeah, he doesn't respond to mine either. I tried to get him on a long ass time ago.
Yeah, he's great, and we're both Catholics. I was really hoping I could get him, but he's not responding to any of my. I might just DM him, but I've never because he follows that I have his DMs, but I've never actually DM'd him, so I don't know if I want to do that yet.
He's a big nose Italian and Catholic, so it's a little bit different, I think.
Italians, God's chosen people.
Exactly. Hey, did you know that you shared the name with the director of communications for the Cato Institute, and for the longest time I thought you were him?
Yes,
I might have even told you that before.
No, people have followed me and DM'd me talking about that Caleb. And people on Facebook have tagged Caleb Brown, that Caleb, to complain about something he said. I'm like, dude, I agree with you. I'm not that guy. I've actually texted him and we talked. I call him my evil twin. I want to get him on the podcast. I think that'd be hilarious, but it would be going to happen.
Oh, he's great. I used to listen to the Cato podcast religiously. It stopped having appeal for me even before Reason did. But I think getting Cato's take on stuff is usually a pretty good way to get like sort of the plumb line. Here's what the regime libertarians are talking about, and it's not a long podcast either. If it's even still out, I don't know. It used to be like 15 minutes a day or something like that. Anyway, I just thought that was a fun coincidence. Have we ever met in person? Were you at the Tom Woods 2000 or anything like that?
I was, but I didn't see you there. Were you there?
Damn, I was definitely there. I thought I met everybody. Oh well, no, there's no way I met everybody. There was 1,000 people, but
only person I met was Reed and Jose.
All right,
the people I met. I saw Pete. I saw a few of the people. I get very sad on people, so I don't normally approach people. I did, however, get a photo with So Bishop and Eric Delay, which was the highlight of the weekend.
That's great. I saw Tho at we keep bringing up Thad, man. I saw Tho at Thad's thing either the following or the preceding weekend to the Tom Woods event, and we got into it a little bit. Not got into it, but like he did a recording of Buck Johnson's show, and he said something about like just completely you have to like take an authoritarian approach to public universities, remove any hint of Marxism. And my response, which, Pete shits on this response a lot. My response was something like, yeah, you say that now, but that expends way more political capital than you have just by winning a governorship. And, whether it's the next election cycle or 12 years from now, eventually the other side is going to come into power, and the more you've punished them, like the bigger the backlash is going to be.
Yeah.
And the left has a much more cultural cachet. Like they're going to be able to sell their backlash a lot better than you were able to sell what they're going to call aggression. I don't know. I don't know what Pete's response to that argument is. All I know is that he talks about it in mocking tones. So I'm guessing he doesn't agree with it.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know?
I don't know.
I would like to know. Okay.
I don't know what the response be for that one. I do know when it comes to like, let's see, maybe a few months ago, I was working on like a PowerPoint presentation on how to take back universities, and I've since scrapped the idea because I'm not sure you can. But I'm much more on the camp of like, how do you like my problem with universities? I would love to see more Catholics build more universities and start new schools, but the accreditation system is such bullshit. You really can't start new schools super easily.
Well, you need more people like the Domino's founder to create Ave Marias and just some order of monks that I know there are still Orthodox orders somewhere that are upholding the tradition, because
the one in the mountains not paying attention right now.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not the diocesan priests for the most part. It's probably not the Jesuits who educated me, so I know. But like, I don't know. I mean, there have got to be, and I'm not talking about like the Society of St. Pius X. I'm talking about like just people who are plumbline Catholics who are going to teach Catholicism to people in a Catholic university. Maybe what we need is some kind of revival. Like a Catholic Great Awakening or something like that. Was the Great Awakening the revival in the 19th century? I can't remember.
I believe it was. I could be mistaken.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, if there were 10, say, Thomas Aquinas colleges and Ave Marias and Catholic versions of Hillsdale instead of just 2. All it would take is that many. Like it's not like you need to turn every single university into a great books curriculum, teaching Aristotle and Aquinas directly from the first sources in order to enact a cultural change. I mean, look at Austrian economics. All it took was the Mises Institute educating a handful of kids who ended up becoming PhD level economists, and now there's Austrian economists in at least every region of the country and universities. Maybe not in every single university, but they're becoming more and more, common. It's not tough to find I think there's even an Austrian economist at the University of Minnesota who I could just call up and say, hey, here's what I want to know. Can you grab a cup of coffee with me? That would not have happened 15 years ago.
Not at all. It's weird to me because like I only got into libertarianism. Let's see, when did Joe Jorgensen won? Was it what was the last election?
2020. Yeah.
Yes, I've only been in the libertarian camp for probably 2 years now. I came in through Joe Jorgensen.
You're kidding me?
No, I'm not. I know,
okay, I need to know that story. That's funny.
Okay, I met Joe Jorgensen at a rally.
Okay.
And I listened to her give a speech, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the memes, and I enjoyed. I was a Ben Shapiro conservative guy, and so he went like any libertarian was like, this actually makes pretty sense. Sure. And then like a month later, he went on with Tom Woods. I'm like, this Tom Woods guy is the shit, and I just watched all I could watch of Tom Woods.
Yeah.
And from there, it was like from Tom Woods to Dave Smith and Michael Malice, and within like a month, I had like I think I had like 5 Rothbard books in a month, and so it's just been from there.
You must be a pretty quick reader. Do you read fast?
No, I just I don't sleep a lot, and I have a job, but thankfully I can we spend an hour driving to and from the work site, and we have like a 30-minute line, so we take lots of breaks. So I bring the book to work, and then honestly, a lot of those books I have on Audible, and I enjoyed so much I buy a paper copy for like the sites and stuff. So I normally listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Cool. What without getting too specific, what kind of work do you
do? Surveying. I'm a
nice. So you have like the little post and the little tripod thing and all that. Oh,
I shoot the gun, shoot the lever, one GPS unit. Do a lot of work for the miners down here.
Cool, nice.
People,
My dad's Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, some people get shocked when I say I work for the mines, and I work in Florida.
Yeah, I didn't know Florida had mines.
Yeah, they have phosphate mines. Most people think of a mine, they think of like an actual like mine set, but it's just like skim mining, where they just take a drag line and skim the top for phosphate and make plastic out of it. And so it's when I say the Florida mines, people are like, Florida has caves. I'm like, it's not that kind of mining. It's a little different.
That's funny. Cool. My dad's in commercial real estate, so I've always kind of been fascinated by surveying and all the equipment and stuff, and just I guess property in general has like I don't know. I guess you could really say that like I grew up in a like propertarian household. I mean, and plus my dad was a big fan of Steve Forbes, being that we were from Texas. So he was also a gold standard guy. Nice. He's by no means a libertarian. In fact, like makes fun of me for my affinity for Ron and Rand Paul. But he was a gold standard guy.
Yeah. Being a surveyor and a libertarian, like all the stuff about property rights is a lot of fun. Because I know what it's like, easements, all that kind of stuff. I can't remember who it was. One of the like mainstream libertarian guys had a question about like property rights because someone buy out a property around you and lock you into your house. And he talked about how people have a right to an easement to escape property, and he called it an easement. And I can't remember who it was, but he called it an easement, and I just started like dying.
It had to be Dave Smith. He mispronounces everything.
I wish I could remember who it was and find that clip and like post it. But it was before I was on Twitter, and so I wasn't like thinking of saving things. But it was so funny.
So you went from Ben Shapiro to Joe Jorgensen to Tom Woods to now Pete Quinones.
Pete Quinones, Curtis Yarvin, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Yarvin. Devour. I'm a subscriber to his Substack, like a paid subscriber. I read everything he puts out. I've still never read Unqualified Reservations. For some reason, reading back issues of an old blog is like, I don't know. I would have to do it at a desktop, and I don't really like to read on my computer because I'm also like I'm sitting where I work during the day and do my podcast and stuff. I don't like being in here any more than I have to be.
Okay, well,
I'd like to see somebody put it in a book form.
Well, Skeptical Waves on YouTube has an audiobook of all of his stuff
really?
on it. All of his books from Unqualified Reservations are available as audiobooks on Skeptical Waves on YouTube.
Skeptical Waves?
Yeah. He's a part of the whole NRX Find My Friend community stuff. Excuse me. He has all of Yaki, some of Evola, all of Yarvin, some land stuff. He has both Eric von Knudler books on Liberty, Equality, Leftism, all his audiobooks. Like at this point now, I kind of just scroll through his channel. Like, I want to cover that on the podcast, and I just go from there. He's incredible.
All right, I'm gonna pull up his YouTube channel so I can remember. Oh, there it is. All right, great. He's got a whole playlist. How convenient. I'm interested in what 2-Bit Podcast wrote here. A long-term winning strat would be to create parallel mimetic desires within the meta culture that do not conflict with the meta. Be more like the Amish.
He's been reading a lot of that mimetic series, dude. Flintstone. What was his name again?
Yeah, Rene Girard.
Yeah, he's been reading a lot of Girard. And I need to have him on to do a Girard episode because it's very interesting, but I don't get it yet.
So I had David Gornosky on, and this past weekend I had Cam Harless on, and he just had David Gornosky on, and Gornosky is heavily influenced by Girard, and I would like to be. I don't quite understand the mimetic stuff just yet. So I don't know. Maybe 2-Bit Podcast has been covering it, and I should go and listen to that show.
It's a great show.
But the
Jason is great.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I'll check it out. The scapegoat stuff from Girard really hits home to me. Having grown up as a gay kid in Texas, I don't really I can identify with scapegoating, I guess. And I see it a lot in. Well, I mean, hell, Mark Clare, the way that he was treated by the Mises Caucus was very scapegoatish to me. When we pin like all of the perceived sins of the universe on one person, or one segment of people, which is like common example, that to me kind of just smacks of. I hate to say like bigotry, but that's like the height of bigotry. Like it's just prejudging people based on people who were maybe like them or something like that.
You'd say it's rational and repugnant.
I would not. I guess I would say that personally. I would never put it in my fucking party platform though.
Absolutely.
Am I allowed to say the F word? Is that
say what the fuck you want?
Right. Good.
This is a Catholic show.
We're Catholics. Exactly. Well, no, we're Catholics. We can swear all we want.
Exactly.
It's not like we're fucking Baptists. No.
Absolutely no. I have all my friends in IOL are still Protestant, and so they see me doing anything, and they don't like smoking or drinking or anything. They're like, Caleb, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, I'll go to confessing tomorrow. What's this enrages them more because they see confessing is like the biggest evil.
That's hilarious. Are you a convert?
Yes, I am.
Oh, cool. When did you convert? What was your story there? I've always been fascinated, like the Journey Home, Marcus Grodi's book and TV show. Oh,
love that.
I used to just devour those stories. Especially when I was doing the Orthodox Catholic stuff. I guess
great.
I was telling Cam the other day, like I was Catholic. I don't know what I am now. All I know is that I'm not Protestant, which he kind of laughed at.
A good place to be.
Yeah. So but still, yeah. I'd love to know like kind of how you crossed the Tiber, so to speak.
Well, I was born and raised Protestant, Pentecostal, not the snake kind. You know, we didn't have any snakes in the church. So
That's what Cam said. Cam also was raised Pentecostal, and he specifically said not the crazy snake kind.
you have to prep when you Pentecostal. You have to preface you're not a snake kind. We were a mega church kind. We had a Starbucks.
Yeah, I guess when you're in the dirty South, you do have to clarify that. I've never to me, Pentecostals are just the Foursquare, people who speak in tongues, and that's pretty much what I know about them. They dance in the aisles. But, yeah.
Never really fit in there because I always saw the white women who would fall to the ground crying as fake, and I that wasn't a very popular thing to say, especially when you kind of look like I was young. My mom would go, "That's not real." See, that wasn't really kosher, I guess you could say. Then we had a great pastor, Pastor Redzy. He left and his son took over, and his son would give sermons. And I was looking into, I like science and evolution, and they told me I couldn't believe in science, and so yeah, but then I found a bunch of Catholics who believe in evolution, so I started reading all that kind of stuff and found Thomas Aquinas. And remember, he was giving a sermon one time, and he said a bunch of things I didn't agree with, and so I emailed him and said, "Heard your recent sermon, I don't agree, and here's why." And we started a debate saying through email, and after a while of the debating with the pastor, and I brought up Genesis, and I'm like, because he's a biblical literalist, and I said, "Is the creation story of Genesis literal?" And you have to believe. Do you believe in a young Earth? He goes, "Well, I don't believe it's literal." So I believe it's literal, but I don't believe it was has to be exactly 7 days because the sun wasn't made to the third day, so we don't know how long the days were beforehand. Like, I'll tell you what, literalist, it says days, and he never really came back from that one. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not. If I can debate and destroy the pastor, I'm not going to that church anymore. That's pretty much my reasoning.
Have you read Augustine's On Genesis?
No, I've only on stuff I've only read Cardinal Ratzinger's Pope Benedict stuff on Genesis. I haven't read any of Augustine on it.
I recommend Augustine's. It's the only full volume church father I've ever read, and it's phenomenal. It is so good. I think that's the third time I've said phenomenal. I should probably work on my adjective.
So I had zeroed off in Democracy, and he said ultimately every other sentence, so it's all good.
Yeah, all right. Good. Did he use ultimate to mean the last in a series, or just as a slang term or whatever?
Kind of both. Okay. Kind of just bounce back and forth. It was
so
at one point he said he just stopped saying it and he just continued saying it afterwards, which was kind of funny.
I guess I'm still hung up on this creating parallel mimetic desires. And I wish that you said Jason, I wish that he would have elaborated on that in the chat, but it's probably too late.
He said he's doing a live reading of it soon. So that's
okay. Good.
The things hidden since the foundation of the world. So that would be fun to read.
Wait. Oh yeah, Things Hidden. That's the name of David Gornowski's podcast. Obviously, I was like, wait a second, why does that sound familiar? Okay, cool. So I'm gonna have to subscribe to 2-Bit Podcast. I recommend everybody else does too, because Rene Girard is the GOAT, and I want to know everything about him, but I don't want to have to sit down and pick up a book because I'm lazy.
Literally why I started this podcast as a book club. I do a bunch of book clubs. Yeah, I pick a book and I cover on a podcast with someone else, and then that's how because I know most libertarians say they read, but they really just read the meme and then say they read the book the meme was from. And so I decided to actually cover the whole book. And then when Human Accent Podcast stopped doing their book club, I declared myself the leading libertarian book club podcast.
Oh, great. Well, I'm happy about that. We're doing Human Action here at the Libertarian Party of Minnesota. We're going to be not Human Action, Man, Economy, and State. Are the chair of my local affiliate got a real steep discount on so Man, Economy, and State itself, but then also Bob Murphy's study guide to Man, Economy, and State from the Mises Institute. So we're buying those in bulk, and anybody who wants a copy is going to get a copy, and we're just going to do a big group book study in his living room. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, but
actually, we were able to get my partner, who's not libertarian and has no interest in economics, to, for whatever reason, decided that he wanted to join us. So he'll be sort of our guinea pig as to how accessible this stuff is to the outside world. Rothbard's Conceived in Liberty is what made me an anarchist. I was as a Ron Paul kid from 2008, and but Ron Paul always talked about the Constitution, and I was like, yeah, that's I don't even know what the difference between the Libertarian Party and the Constitution Party is. And then I heard Tom Woods and Lou Rockwell. I don't know if it was on the Lou Rockwell show or the Tom Woods show, but it was on one of their shows. They were talking, and Lou Rockwell said, well, the Constitution says, and then he stopped and he goes, now, I'm no fan of the Constitution, but this is what it says. And I said, not a fan of the Constitution? How can you possibly call yourself a libertarian if you're not a fan of the Constitution? And so that led me to the Mises Institute, not just LRC, and that led me to Conceived in Liberty, which I listened to the audiobook of, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Now I understand why the Constitution isn't part of libertarianism. I don't know where I'm at now regarding like the anarchy, minarchy, whatever divide. I don't think it matters anymore. COVID changed everything, so to speak. So.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that for a little bit here. Not COVID changing things, but specifically like labels.
Sure.
So I said earlier, I'm kind of done with labels. I think the best people are ones who just say the right wing, and then pull from all the different, or just say the left wing and say the right wing, and just pull all over that spectrum. I think they can use. I think anyone who kind of subscribes to a label, inherently also is subscribing to the ideology of that label, and then that comes a lot of problems when you try to differ from anyone who is inside that ideology, or you have excuse me, like people who comment on like Andrew from Popular Liberty stuff by like, well, that's not libertarian. And it's just like it's gonna if it works. My one guy said, well, that's not what Waspar said. Like, I don't care what Waspar said on this topic. I think I'm right on this one. Okay, I don't worship Waspar and lie on everything he said. This isn't objectivism. He's not Ayn Rand. This isn't the same. It's yeah.
Well, Rothbard's pro-choice. I mean that in itself, to me proves that he's not like I'm not copacetic with him on everything. I guess is where I would land on that question. But anyway, labels. So I would even question right wing. Because you get into the argument of whether neocons are right wing in the same way that you get into the question of whether Nick Sarwark is a libertarian. Where do you see the definition of right wing lying, I guess?
I would say a definition of right wing is, or a definition of a right wing person, I guess you could say, is someone who believes in order and natural hierarchies. Like that's really like my white left divide is left being egalitarian, right being hierarchical, or chaos versus order. And it's keep it very, very simple, very small. I know Andrew has this whole time preference for power, same way that goes over too many. I think he's right. It goes over way too many people's heads to be effective use. This is a lot of what Andrew says. Honestly, it's like I think he's right on almost everything. But I'm in a group chat with Andrew, and he'll send like basically books on a thesis on like one question one guy had. The guy, someone texted me and was like, "Hey, how do you make him stop?"
He needs to publish that stuff to his Subscribe Star so that we all can see it, because I have thus far not been invited to the Praxian group chat, even though I have asked to be invited.
I'm hoping to get invited eventually. Great.
Well, I don't know. I'm decidedly not a Praxian anymore. Like that was another rabbit hole that I considered, and I mean, I like his ideas. I don't think that he's going to be any more successful than the LP at, turning the LP. How did I put this? I don't remember. The Mises Caucus has to turn the Libertarian Party libertarian. The Praxians have to turn the Republican Party libertarian, or something like that. I don't know. It was super clever at the time. I don't, my same criticism of political libertarianism I have for political Praxianism. I don't think that I don't think that people on the right, broadly speaking, people who, I definitely agree with you with the natural hierarchy thing. And I think that libertarianism is sort of the apotheosis of the desire for natural hierarchies. So I would consider right-wingism, libertarianism, or libertarianism, right-wingism writ large.
I would consider libertarianism, as properly understood, is also right wing.
Sure.
But there's some principles in libertarianism, specifically when it comes to like more actions of strategy, or specifically with libertarians who adopt a political ideology as an overall philosophy. That I'm just like, I'm gonna distance myself. I still like 90% of it, but I'm gonna distance myself a little bit because I think there's a few issues that I'm not gonna fix. So
the other thing is that I think libertarianism is definitely in the natural hierarchies thing, at least if it's properly understood,
Mm.
but it's not aligned with the order thing, unless you grant that order can be derived from chaos, and or the like the spontaneous order that economists talk about, the invisible hand of the market, etc. So if it's an imposed order, which I think of as conservatism or traditionalism or even theocracy, then that would probably be incompatible with sort of pure libertarian theory, I guess. Although I mean, I guess Hoppe talks about it in his Covenant Communities thesis, but then I mean, covenant communities are necessarily pretty small. He also talks about the major metropolitan areas that are essentially left-wing, chaotic types of areas. But then in a covenant community, and I'm really kind of going off on a tangent here, but in a covenant community, who's to say that the hierarchies are natural? If it's a company town, which he describes in Democracy: The Guy That Fails, then it's not a spontaneous hierarchy, a natural hierarchy. It's definitely a managed hierarchy that's created by the company that owns the town.
I think the best person who wrote one, besides Harper, who wrote on like covenant communities and that style was Curtis Yarvin. Had a book, a series of blog posts called Patchwork, which he kind of dives into. Like I think it's a great read.
Like I actually have read that. I think
it's a good one. I had what's his name, Jay from Slip Gang on for that one, which was great. But one of the points with libertarians, for example, I have here's a kind of example of my issues. Is a lot of them conflate security with oppression. Or they say things like freedom is the absence of coercion or absence of force, kind of thing. But I think if you are free in your property, but the moment you step outside of your property, you're killed. You're not really free because you're not free to leave your property. Yeah. But if you have a secure society that has like freedom has to come out of security, has to come out of the suppressant of coercive threats. So you have to have some security, which implies some order to the security, which implies you have to have those two as necessary components for actual freedom to exist in the community. I don't think libertarians follow that line of reasoning, and I think they have some conflation in how they view words. They disagree with that. Like I think the meaning of it they would agree with, but the words they don't like, and so they wouldn't agree with it.
I think you're absolutely right to an extent. I think that line of reasoning that you just expressed is what got Dave Smith in trouble with the less thoughtful libertarians who thought that his idea that homeless people who are drug addicts should not be allowed to sleep on park benches or occupy space in the public library where they're jerking off to porn or whatever, which like I've experienced. I was a like volunteer at a AIDS crisis center that happened to have a lending library in Dallas, and the lending library had free computers with internet access, but like everybody who wasn't homeless had internet access in their pocket at this point. And so like the only people who would actually show up to this library to use the internet were homeless people who knew that they could get on porn here because we didn't filter the internet, unlike the public libraries. And like even at that hyper progressive, gay serving HIV oriented place, like I would have to kick somebody out if they were jerking off to porn on the internet. Obviously I didn't need to call the cops to do that, but like if they became problematic, I might have. I don't see any conflict there with libertarianism, but for whatever reason, Dave Smith, when he says, hey, yeah, no, you can't be doing this shit, he got into huge trouble with the libertarians, and I don't know that they were very thoughtful in that.
I mean, a lot of them want. Like I got one guy making the argument that because he has set up a tent on the property, he has mixed his labor with the land and is now rightful owner of that land because government land is unowned land. And so he made a Lockean homesteading argument for homeless people that own parks, and I'm like, no, I'm not. No, that's so stupid. I'm not engaging with you on this one. You're just wrong. Like I like, what are you? Yeah, like they're all good libertarians. Like Lou Rockwell, for example, is one of my favorite libertarians. I think he is like my go-to favorite guy. I think Rockwell is absolutely incredible. His book Against the Left is like my second favorite book ever written. Like it's just it's amazing. And he gets like I think he truly understands the order things, the order side and the security side of things. Like when he has this that article, like unleash the cops. Like he gets like, okay, well, we're not ending Kapistan. We have to have some semblance of order here. It's I mean, in his book Against the Left, he uses the expert of Murray Rothbard to say you don't have to let homeless people sting up the library. You don't have to let the UPS fail to deliver all its packages, because that would be disastrous for the populace, and it's not fair to the populace who pays for it, who is forced to subsidize the service, get robbed of that service that they're already being robbed to pay for. And so, like, the good libertarians get it, but I think this overall, there's some people who don't. That's just I don't want to be associated with that group wholeheartedly anymore.
That makes sense. I, on the other hand, am sitting here tilting at windmills still. So we'll see which one of us is right. Actually, we probably won't ever see that. We will continue on our own paths and hopefully end up, successful in wherever those paths lead. 2-Bit Podcast with another just bomb of wisdom, and this one I do understand. Liberalism has confused organizations with order. Yeah, absolutely. And when he says liberalism, I'm assuming he's not conflating that with progressivism, which is a subset of liberalism, but so is libertarianism. Like when you confuse or conflate an institution or an organization with a naturally occurring elite, and so this was something that I bristled at up until, very recently. Michael Malice has always called himself like an elitist, and I've always been like, he's just being tongue in cheek. Nobody's actually an elitist. You can't be an anarchist and an elitist. But like, no, it totally makes sense. Having now worked in like politics proper and not just, arguing about politics on Facebook, I see what it's like, dealing with candidates who are candidates because like they are members of the community who other members of the community like and respect and honor, versus being a member of the community who has used his manipulation skills to get ahead. So that illustration is translatable to just about anything. When the wrong person becomes the elite, that is almost always because of some sort of managed managed hierarchy as opposed to a naturally occurring hierarchy. And yeah, anyway, it's all bureaucratic stuff.
That's probably my second biggest criticism of the state, is that it's interfered so much with the natural flow and the creation of elites, that now all the elites just suck, and there's no place to turn for actual counter or good elites, because they're all subsidized and created by the institution of the state.
And that's why I guess I'm a collapsitarian. I don't really know. I think that's the inevitable trajectory of any state. You're either going to deflate slowly like the British Empire did, and Great Britain is now a pretty functioning society. They've got their problems. In a lot of ways they're like less woke than the United States. They're they have their issues with authoritarianism just like any modern Western state. But they did kind of deflate slowly and did not crash and burn because they had the United States to prop them up. Or you go the way of Rome or the United States 30 or 40 years from now, and you just collapse, and it sends things into turmoil, and you have a new so-called dark age. And that's what I'm a little bit afraid of, and I hate to see what my nieces and goddaughter and so on have in store for them, because I don't think it's gonna be pretty. I hope that I am able to influence the adults around me to raise their children, because I'm pushing 40. I'm probably never gonna have kids, but I do have people I love who have kids, and I have kids who I love in my life. So I'm hoping that I can use my influence, such as it is, to kind of bring up people who are able to be self-sufficient, who are able to fly and see the world for what it is. And that's why I named my show Blackbird. Beatles song. So yeah, I want to make people as self-sufficient as possible so that generations hence they are not in just absolute dire straits.
Mhm.
If we're headed to feudalism, I want them to be lords and not the serfs.
Absolutely. You gotta talk to Jason. You used to talk to him sometime soon. He's great. He's orthodox, kind of neo-reactionary. We had a podcast a while ago. I had him on my 3-part series on not Dust of the West, Suicide of the West from by James Burnham. And we were talking about like the failure, collapse of America and stuff, or how we're probably never going to see the success of any ideas in the future. And he's a daughter, so he's all on like I know I'm never gonna see anything in my lifetime. Everything I'm doing is to make sure my daughter has a future that is going to be successful or is going to be survivable of the collapse, or the ideas that I spread will influence her and the next generation of people. Like he's just incredible, great guy.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually, as it turns out, Jason and I have messaged kind of a lot, and less than a year ago. So I should really have that in mind for some reason. And I don't know why. Like I know the 2-Bit podcast because we follow each other on Twitter. I'm sure I've listened to at least an episode because otherwise why would I have followed him? In any case, yeah, Jason, this is an open invitation to appear on Blackbird. I'd love to have that conversation.
He did
and
an
Caleb,
episode.
obviously, I should probably return the favor and have you on the show as well.
Come on. Now he did an episode recently on Curtis Yarvin, Friend of Fed. He's doing a Friend of Fed series that you might enjoy. He brings it like
what was the conclusion?
We didn't really reach a solid conclusion on that one. I feel like it was very he could go either way. He also did Jordan Peterson Friend of Fed, which is pretty good. He's going through how IDW people.
Sure.
So really good. But
sorry, that's probably really loud. Yeah, no. If I had to make a just knee-jerk reaction, Jordan Peterson, if not Fed, then useful idiot, and Yarvin, probably not Fed, but definite limited hangout.
That's a fair answer. Well, we've gone for 1 hour and 6 minutes. This has been a great podcast. Absolutely enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on. Where can people find you at?
So James LJ on Twitter. And then Blackbird with James Jenneman on all the podcatchers, YouTube, etc. I'm switching podcast hosts. I've been saying that for weeks. I switched from Substack to RSS.com, and I need to build out my new website. So blackbirdpodcast.com is still live, I think, but I don't know where it points. It might go to Substack where you're not going to find my episodes. So your best bet is just to search for it in your podcast app.
Wonderful. Oh, one more question. If you could recommend any book to people, what book would you recommend?
Well, if it's someone who is the most impactful book I've ever read is a book called The Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning. It is a bit of a Christian / Catholic self-help book. It's really good, The Ragamuffin Gospel. But if someone is Bible curious and or Catholic curious, then I always send them to A Father Who Keeps His Promises by Scott Hahn. And if they're liberty curious, I don't recommend books. I mean, if I was pressed, then probably For New Liberty by Rothbard, but like I don't like libertarian books for the most part. I would probably just say, hey, follow some libertarians on Twitter and maybe go to the Mises Institute from time to time. But
yeah, Scott Hahn is I think I have obviously not all of his books. He's about like 60 something.
I see the spines.
I think have you before you wrap up, have you read his book Politicizing the Bible?
No.
Oh, I think you'd love it. It's a history of biblical criticism and how different government powers have hired and found friends, priests, or theologians and used them to say, hey, push this narrative of the Bible so I can control the population this way. It's
okay. So is dispensationalism in there where the American evangelicals made Israel a thing, basically?
It's not in that one, but it's in the sequel book. Hold on.
While you're looking, John Hartman recommended How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World by the guy. Yeah, I've actually never read that, I'm ashamed to say, and it's probably the one that, from what I know about it, it's the one that is most aligned with what I believe as far as libertarianism goes.
Mm.
What's the name of the guy that wrote that book? Holy crap!
Harry Brown, right?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. The second book is talking about was his modern history of biblical criticism. The first book only covers from 1300 to 1700. The second one covers 1700 to 1900.
Nice.
And he has a popular level book called "The Decline and Fall of Sacred Scripture." And so he has a
That's
popular
fantastic.
level 1 and 2 scholar level books, and they're really good topic.
I have read all of his books on the sacraments, along with The Father Who Keeps His Promises, and Swear to God, which is kind of about all of the sacraments. And then Rome Sweet Home, of course, because everybody has read that. But I haven't read anything since then. I haven't really read Catholic literature in a few years. So
I really enjoy his book on
Mary.
He has a great book on Mary.
Yeah, Hail Holy Queen. Yeah, that's another one. Actually, Mark Shea he's a Catholic blogger, but he has a three volume book on Mary that is real good. I can't remember the name of it, but it's just Mark Shea, Shea. He's the one who introduced me to Ron Paul and set me down this particular path. So he's a Catholic blogger. He hates libertarianism. He says it's an ideology for people without children. He thinks that it's just completely atomistic and not cognizant of the fact that there's a society and not just people, not individuals. But Ron Paul was anti-war, especially, namely anti the Iraq War and torture and all the other attendant things that came along with that, and pro-life. So he was like, well, I guess he's my guy by default. So that's how I discovered Ron Paul, was through his blog. I also discovered Tom Woods through his blog because he reviewed his book, How the Catholic Church Built Western Civilization.
That's a good one.
So I kind of dropped the Mark Shea and kept the Tom Woods and Ron Paul, and the rest is history.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's another episode of Faith, Liberty, and Praxis. This is season 2, episode 9. Tomorrow will be the last episode for the month. It's going to be a review of What is a Woman by Matt Walsh with Adam Patrick and what's his name? Tommy Salmons. I can't remember his name. So yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. It will not be on YouTube. It will only be on Odyssey because I don't believe it would stay up on YouTube. And so we're gonna make an Odyssey exclusive. But yeah, that's it for this episode. Have a good night.